सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय मूर्तये नमः। गुकारस्त्वन्धकारो वै ऋकारस्त्वन्निवर्तकः अन्धकारनिरोधित्वात् गुरुरित्यभिधीयते। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति. Let's chant verses last two verses of the Agama Prakarnam Karika, number 28 and 29, and we'll finish today. Number 28, Pranavam hi Ishwaram Vidyat. Pranavam hi Ishwaram Vidyat. Pranavam hi Ishwaram Vidyat. Sarvasya hridi samsthitam. Sarvasya hridi samsthitam. Sarvavyapinam omkaram. Sarvavyapinam omkar. Matva dhiro na shochati. Dhiro na shochati. Amatro nantamatrascha. Amatro nantamatrascha. Dvaitasyopasamah Shivaha. Dvaitasyopasamah Shivaha. Omkaro vidito yena. Omkaro vidito yena. Munirretaro janaha. Samunirretaro. So we looked at number 28 last time. Pranavam hi Ishwaram Vidyat. Sarvasya hridi samsthitam. Sarvavyapinam omkaram matva dhiraha na shochati. So he says that one should know Vidyat. Pranavam hi Ishwaram Vidyat. One should know that the Omkara, Pranavaha, Omkaraha, is indeed Ishvara and is really you. So the name Omkara belongs to the Atma, which is the same between Ishvara and myself. So if you want to, each one of us has a different name given to by our parents and the society and so on. But our real name, which doesn't change, you see, because we take up a different name every life, depending on where you are born, and sometimes you're a female, sometimes you're a male. There's some different system on how that is all done. But really speaking, the name of the person who does not change, who's the actor, who's not playing a role, because when we live a life, we are playing a role. And the one who does not play a role, the real actor, is Omkara. So our name is Omkara. So if we want to see what your name is, it is Omkara. And it's the same person who is the Ishvara. Because Ishvara is the one who is you. We deny that. We say, no, Ishvara cannot be me. Ishvara cannot be me. So we have our own funny ideas about rejecting that Ishvara and I are the one. So here the interesting thing is that, we often think that we are shy of saying, no, I don't want to belittle Ishvara. I'm just a small person. That, I don't want to. Rani, it's here. Chairs are here. Come, there's a couple of chairs. Yeah, there's, no, come here. So the thing is that we are shy. We are shy of making Ishvara a small person. No. I am just a small person. I don't want to be. But the real fact is that we should be not blocking Ishvara. As we will see, the whole teaching is how not to block Ishvara. So don't be shy. Don't block Ishvara. Just let it happen. Because that is the truth. And in fact, this is what's happening. Sarvasya hridi samsthitam. So, pranavam hi Ishwaram vidyat. May you know that the name of Atma is Omkara. And the one Ishvara, so as we saw in the introduction to this verse last week, or 2 weeks ago when we did it, so here Swami Maheshananji pointed out that where should my prayer and attention be? What is the location? What is the location of Ishvara? So the normal thing is that you pray to Ishvara as something outside of you. This is the normal thing. The real presence of Ishvara is in my own heart. This is where he lurks. This is where he's there, and we don't understand the presence of Ishvara. Because the very fact that I keep myself as a separate entity means that I have stopped looking. That's not where I am. You see, I'm just a small, normal person, that cannot be. So the main thing is, where else is Ishvara? And Ishvara is saying, hey, I'm within you. No. You cannot be within me. I'm a miserable person. I've got a lot of problems and so on. And that's another thing, that if you are within me, why are you allowing me to have so much dukkha in my life? So all those reasons are there, but for whatever reason, we don't recognize the presence of Ishvara. And then the progress in life is calm down and follow the instructions of the Shastra. Follow the instructions of the Shastra and look within you. Look within you. What you are now totally rejecting, it is just underneath you. It's just not even within you, it is you. Swami Dayanand used to say that it's not inside or outside, it is, the whole thing is nothing but you. But at least from my perspective, my drishti, my vision is distorted because I don't find it inside me. How can that be? So, one other thing that we will see, this is now, we are going to progress. So this entire Agama Prakarnam, so the Karika has 4 sections. 4 sections. So we are just finishing up the first of the 4 sections. This is called Agama Prakarnam. The name of this Karika, this book is going to be finished after today, is called Agama Prakarnam. The meaning of Agama Prakaranam is that I should see what the Shastra is telling me. Shastra is called Agama. It has some various etymological meaning to why it is called Agama. But anyway, without going through that, I had remembered it, but I don't remember it at the moment. But anyway, I do know that Agama means Shastra. So, you remember, so we had said that there are 3 things that my mind is totally devoted to three things. Just like, so for example, supposing you see a very beautiful, a fruit sitting in front of you. So your eyes say that this is an apple. But the ascertainment that this is an apple is not complete until you do two other things. Or one of the two things. Either you touch it or you smell it. And from that you can find out that this is just a stone apple. It is not a real apple. So there are two or three examinations that you have to do that all resolve in a complete understanding of what this vastu is. So also is our situation. I am not convinced about the fact that I am unlimited. Not convinced at all. In fact, I am totally convinced that I am very limited. I am sukhi, dukhi, changing. There's no conjecture. This is my experience. Shastra says, no, you are not. You are just, your experience is faulty, not there. So, I am not convinced of it. Not convinced of what the Shastra is telling me. So, it is just like your eyes are telling you that this is an apple, but you have not finalized your conclusion until you look at it from all sides. This is called pramana siddha. Pramana siddha means that your pramana, your eyes are saying, hey, as far as I can tell, this looks like a real apple. And some of my wife has a collection of fruits. I should make a picture of that from our living room. So she has a collection of these fruits. So she's an interior designer. And once in a while she finds these. We haven't bought anything for a long time, but 20 years ago she found this collection of fruit. It's so real. It is unbelievable. You cannot tell. So well done. So your eyes are telling that this is the truth, but you are not sure. Similarly, the Shastra is saying that you are unlimited, but I am not sure. So in order for me to be sure, I have to examine it in three ways. One is, as you know very well, Shruti. Second one is Yukti. And the third one is Anubhava. So I have to see what Shruti, because it is so opposite to what my experience is, that I don't even look at the Shruti. And most people don't. It is our fortune that either we are born into that culture or we find somebody who says, this is something very, very profound, look into it. So then I look into it. I say, this is what the Shruti is saying. But I'm not convinced. Just like my eyes are saying this is an apple, but I'm not yet convinced. And you shouldn't be. You shouldn't be. So the Shruti saying that this is the case is just the start. So the first Prakarnam, which is Agama Prakarnam, which we are now finishing, is the Shruti saying something that I should listen to. Okay, this is why it is called Agama Prakarnam. And the Mandukya Upanishad is so short, only 12 verses, that the entire Upanishad and some of the Karika is contained in this Prakarana. And the reason I am saying that is Shruti is saying Pranavam hi Ishwaram Vidyat Sarvasya Hridi Samsthitam. So Shruti is saying it. So I should start at least following the lead of the Shruti, then the other Prakaranams, the next Prakaranam that we will see, and the third one, and the fourth one, will give you Yukti and Anubhava. Only then you will be totally convinced. So at this point in time, just be very patient. Don't disregard it. Don't believe in it either. Just be patient. So this is the situation. This is why we will now begin the second Prakaranam from next time. Maybe even today I'll see. Which is called Vaithatya Prakaranam. And so that is Yukti Param. It is all done with... Here the examination is what is Shruti saying. Then the second Prakaranam will say what is the logic behind it. Then the third one and the fourth one will be Anubhava Prakaranam, called Advaita Prakaranam and Alata Shanti Prakaranam. So when we do all of that, you are essentially asking, because our minds and our conclusions, even though it is basically irrational, but it is rationally irrational. It is a mistake, but it is, what else do you want me to do? I can't live a life that is not clear to me. I can only live a life which is clear to me. And what is clear to me is my conclusion. And that conclusion happens to be wrong. And until you convince me, I am not going to be doing that. So this is the unfolding of it. This is why the Karika is so important. So now what will happen is that at the end of the verse number 29, our Agama Prakarnam, what is the Shruti saying, will be over. At least that part will be wrapped up. Okay. Then we will start the Yukti Para Prakaranam. Anyway, what the Shruti is saying is, hey, please understand that Sarvasya Hridi Samsthitam Vidya. So the Shruti is saying your examination of where Ishvara is should be directed towards your own mind. How you behave, all of that. And it is really Ishvara who is behind all of your actions and how you do things. See the presence of that. Here the Gita also in verse number in chapter 18, verse number 61 says the same thing. Very often quoted verse, very important verse, saying the same thing. And in fact, sometimes if we have time, on the 6th chapter of Panchadashi, this section is explained in huge detail. And what is that? In chapter 18, verse 16, he says, Ishvara sarva bhutanam hritdeshe arjuna tishtati brahmayan sarva bhutani yantra arudhani mayaya. This is the verse. If you want to just go look it up sometime. Ishvara sarva bhutanam hritdeshe arjuna tishtati brahmayan sarva bhutani yantra arudhani mayaya. He says, hey Arjuna, I, Krishna as the Ishvara, as the avatar of Ishvara, saying, please understand all of your actions. You are kind of like a Kataputli. You're like what is the English word for it? Puppet. In that case, that you're really, I am behind you. And based on your karma and so on and so forth, you take different veshas and different forms, and this whole thing. And Swami Maheshananji actually gives a different example. He gives an example of this, merry-go-round, where there's a horse that goes up and down, and different people are doing it. And so this is called yantra. Yantra means it is some kind of a instrument which is making you work. But you should see that what's happening, the very Chaitanyam, the very Atma that is making all of that, is the source of that is nothing but Ishvara. So this is the same verse. And so there, what is number 28 is saying is, Pranavam hi Ishwaram Vidyat. May you know, may you examine. Vidyat means may you know, may you. So this is Dhyanapara. This is where your attention should be, your thinking should be. Where? That Pranavam hi Ishvara. And how? We have seen all of that. So what that means is that behind all of the various phases of your life, three main phases: Jagrat Avastha, the waking state, the dream state, and the sleep state. Behind all of that, there is Turiya that doesn't change. So this is how I should see. And that Turiya is nothing but Brahman, Ishvara. And that is nothing but you. No change, no difference between you. You are the very Atma. So, Pranavam hi Ishwaram Vidyat. Here Swami Maheshananji had given this very beautiful example. He says, he must have been traveling in a train, because he says that look at it. So you have these railroad tracks. So these are two rails made out of metal, very solid and very well made. On these railroad tracks, you have various kinds of trains that are passing. So one time there's a very beautiful Shatabdi with air-conditioned chairs. Then you have some kind of a passenger train. They're, with all the windows open, there's no air conditioning. And one time there's a goods train. People, a lot of coal, heavy, cranky, noisy. The rail remains the same. The rail remains the same. It doesn't make any distinction between it's an air-conditioned one or something. It just is the basis for all the changes. Very similarly to that is you and I. We are the Sakshi that entertains various phases of my life. By itself, it is not affected at all. And we don't understand that because we do not have the viveka. We don't have the distinction yet, and we should. We should develop the viveka of seeing that there is an unchanging aspect of this and a changing aspect of this. And the changing aspect is to enjoy and to have some experience and so on, but that's not me. That's not me. And so this is how one has to understand pranava. So pranavam hi Ishwaram Vidyat. That I should see there is something which I am rejecting, which is the very nature of Ishvara. See, this is the interesting thing. Look at it this way. If you examine your own nature, examine yourself, supposing you take an inventory of yourself, your whole life, just yourself as a person. It has two parts to it. One is what is given to you. And really speaking, all of my life, the ingredients of my entire life is given to me. It is given to me. Based on certain orders that you had provided. You have written down, I want this, and so on. This is how your karmas all give you. So the nature of what is given to you may be different, but everything is given to you. So really speaking, you as your DNA is given to you. And then the expression of the DNA as a baby is given to you. Your body is given to you. Your mind is given to you. Name is given to you. How tall you will be is given to you. Whether you will be happy or unhappy is given to you. Everything is, you did not invent anything on your own. All you can do is perhaps you'll say, no, this book, I have placed it here. This is mine. Nobody has given to me. But the ability for me to handle this book from here to there is also given to me. So really nothing is just not given to me. This I should understand. Nothing is invented. All the inventions are also, the ability for the invention is also given to you. And given by whom? By the power of Maya, by the power of Ishvara. Your parents are also given to you. So this is one aspect of me. What is given to me? The other aspect of me is you are not given to you. You are what you are. It is not given to you. And you are nothing but Brahman. So another aspect of this is, as we know very well, in fact, in my talk in India, I made this point, and I was thinking maybe, I didn't know what to talk. I made it a bit Vedantic and so on. And there were a lot of people, the villagers and so on and so forth, that perhaps didn't quite get what I wanted, but I wanted to say. And that is, I have two aspects of my life. One is Swabhava and one is Swarupa. Swabhava is given to me. Swarupa is not given to me. Swarupa is me. It's not given to me. Unchanging, it is me. And that Swarupa is the same as the Swarupa of Ishvara. So Ishvara has created me in two ways. One is the unchanging me, and one is the changing Swabhava. And the changing Swabhava comes about in the examination of the three phases that I go through. Because my view of my life is distorted. My view is that my Jagrat Avastha, my waking state, is a real me. This is what I am. And dream is just a dream. Sleeping is just a rest from it. This is the main thing. I miss the points completely. where I examine myself, how I analyze myself, and so on, has to be totally redirected. And if I do, then the pranavam hi ishwaram vidyat, meaning I should see what is me and what is swabhava, what is swarupa. This is what the Shastra is telling me to do. I'm not convinced yet, but if I'm fortunate enough to follow the Shastra, this is what is told me. And it's interesting that the first line which says, this is what you should see. Pranavam hi Ishwaram vidyat. May you see, and may you also see that Ishvara is resident in the heart of everyone. You are no different from the Ishvara. If you know this fact well, Sarva Vyapinam Omkaram Matva. Matva means that if you are totally convinced about it, which you will be at some point in time, Dhiraha na shochati. Dhiraha na shochati. Then the Viveki, Dhiraha means a Viveki. When you are able to do the Viveka, so what you will be able to see is right now when you have some sukha dukkha, some happiness and unhappiness, you just immediately take it to yourself. This is me. This is aviveki. A viveki would be, it belongs to my mind. It belongs to my thinking, not to me. Not to me. Asangoham, sangarahitaha. That is the convincing that would require a lot of thought. Yes, I recently saw a very beautiful example about Sangam, about the fact that you feel attached to it. Beautiful example by Swami Maheshananji. Really, he says, look at this. Look at a person in the hospital who is very ill, close to death. Okay, we'll examine that. So, there are two people who are attending to this patient. One is someone who is physically attached to that person, daughter maybe of a person, son or whatever. The other one is a nurse. Okay, so these are the two people. Now look at how they view this fatal illness of the patient. And not necessarily patient, is very ill. Doesn't mean to be, it doesn't have a terminal illness, but is extremely ill and could collapse. And actually does collapse, it dies. Here's what happens. The person who is attached is not able to really do a good job of supporting the needs of that patient. You don't know. You don't know whether I should give some oxygen, what medicines to give, and so on and so forth. And you cry. Your eyes are full of tears. And you're thinking about the loss and so on. And when the person dies, now you are in total loss. You're grieving. This is one situation. Take the nurse on the other side. The nurse does a much better job of taking care of the patient than you can. You're trained. You know exactly what to do. Okay? So in terms of your performance towards the patient, the nurse is much more qualified than you are. All you can do is to say, hey nurse, my mother needs some water. And the nurse says, no, water is not necessary because she's getting some whatever. So she's more capable. now comes the response after the patient has died. So the nurse also feels badly and says, I'm very sorry, and so on and so forth. Then she calls up the supervisor and says, this is Swami Maheshananji saying, calls up the supervisor and says, sir, the patient on room number 15 has died. Do you have another job for me? Asangoham. Asanga. So you cannot say that she's heartless. She's heartless. Here I am crying and so on and so forth, and she's calling up the supervisor and saying, where's my next job? She's not heartless. She did a much better job of supporting your mother than you did. But the dukkha is not there. And very similar to that is really, if you look at the referees in these games, it's exactly the same. So you have, in basketball, warriors, and these people are fighting, and this, that, or the other, emotional, that this was not a foul, this was not technical, and it's not as though the referee is not involved. They are following each one very well, and they build a whistle, and whoever wins, that doesn't matter to them. So really speaking, this is what I have to do, is you do a good job of living. Do a good job of following what your svabhava is. But really speaking, you should say, it's over. What's next for me? Just like be a nurse. Be like a nurse. But I refuse being a nurse because so this is what happens. If somebody else has a problem, I don't mind. But my child, oh my gosh, it's very important for my child not to be sick. This is the issue. We refuse to see the viveka between the fact that I am actually unattached, but I make myself believe that I'm attached. So this is the explanation of the word dhiraha. Dhiraha means, Adi Shankara actually explains this. Swami Maheshananji points this out. Dhiraha means a viveki. And that viveka will come from your being convinced. You're not convinced yet. So this is just an introduction. The entire Prakarnam, called Agama Prakarnam, is just to say, here's what you need to do. Follow this. But then if you think about it through your own mananam and nididhyasanam and so on, there will be a point you'll say, oh my God, I can't believe that I allowed myself to be so silly. I am something different. I am totally different. Yeah, we are actually studying this in the Bhagavad Gita class. We will see that today itself. And in the explanation of, I'm just mixing up a lot of things, but in the explanation of chapter 6, I think Swami Paramarthananda has done a superb job. I'm just following his reasonings and so on. We will see this in the Bhagavad Gita class. So what he says is, that's the relevance to what I'm just saying. Sarva vyapinam omkaram matva dhiraha na shochati. This is the reference. So what Swami Paramarthananda has said so well, he's explained it so well, is that this nirvikalpa samadhi doesn't mean a thoughtless state. This is so misinterpreted. Really, people don't understand. And this is the reason for having a sampradayic vidya, well ascertained and well protected, well explained, well maintained, this sampradaya. It doesn't mean that Nirvikalpa Samadhi means that you just sit there with no thoughts whatsoever, and so that's not our thinking. Then what is our thinking? Our thinking is that your thought should be to understand the enormity of what Atma is. The Mahima of the Atma. The Paramatma, that Jivatma is nothing but Paramatma. This is an understanding through thoughts, through introductions. And you are totally absorbed in the idea that this is how it is. If you do that, you will see for yourself that even though your mind is just going haywire, you are not haywire, but your mind is changing and so on, but you are unaffected by that. So this is the meaning of Sarvavyapinam Omkaram, the one which is unchanging, always there. Shokam, there is no shoka. It is exactly you are like a nurse. You'll say, this is gone, this body is disappearing, but I am not the body. So this gives a cover. This is the finality of Agama Prakarnam. So this is the Agama Prakarnam. And then one concluding verse to this, by which then we are now done. Amatraha anantamatrascha dvaitasya upashamaha shivaha omkaraha vidito yena saha muni na itaro janaha. So here the translation by Swami Maheshananji is the one that I would like to use. So it could be done either way, but here Swami Paramarthananda's translation I'm not going to adopt, where he says Amatra is without sound. He has gone through an explanation of Matra and Anantmatra with sounds. That's not how Swami Maheshananji has taken up, so I'm going to follow Swami Maheshananji. So Amatraha means, so Matraha, and this is the explanation from Adi Shankara. So Matraha means a specific measure. And we have done this, if you look at the previous classes. Miyate anena iti matra. So matra means a kind of like a cup. So when you say a coffee cup, so it has a little bigger than a teacup. So a specificity is matra. And if you look at the broader meaning of that, I'm just following the explanation of Adi Shankara's commentary by Swami Paramarthananda. Any limitation is a matra. This is what technically it's called in Sanskritam, parichinnata. Parichinnaha means a matra. A good explanation of that is a room space. Room space. From a room space means that it is specific, something particular. Like you are looking for an apartment to go into. You know, when you were single, you were living in a studio. Then you got married, you got a one bedroom. So one bedroom apartment is a matra. And then you have some children, now you need 2 bedrooms. That's another matra. So let's look at this. This is the measure. Matra means a measure, means parichinnata. And so any conclusion that we have, I'm a male, is a matra. I'm a female, it's a matra. I'm Indian, it's a matra. So any specificity, any specific thing is called matra. And Shivaha, is amatra. So, how? So, I took the example of this room space. Space is amatra. And amatra is alone the matra. See, the space alone can become the room space. You cannot have room space without, it's just a way of looking at it. That's it. And this is also anantamatra. Very beautiful. So look at this definition. Amatra means not a specific measure. So this is exactly what, when we are looking for God, Ishvara, we are looking for Ishvara as a matra. Where is He? What is my relationship to it? I want to localize it. I want to particularize it. When in fact, the fact of the Ishvara is, it is amatra. It's like telling someone that I know the room space, but I don't know where space is. Exactly the same situation. So it's amatra means it is not specificity. It is not specificity, and it is infinite. In fact, anantamatra. Beautiful explanation of some Maheshananji. Dvaitasya upashamaha. Dvaitasya upashamaha means where, and it's these Dvaitasya upashamaha follows the amatraha anantamatrascha. That when you don't, so Dvaita means that it is reasonable that you are talking in terms of room space. You know, we are talking to JP that this room space is too small, we want a bigger room. So this is called Dvaita. This is not enough for me, I need a bigger room. And then one room says, you're only in one bedroom, I've got a 2-bedroom apartment. I'm bigger than you are. Dvaita. And so this is what it is, that from a Vyavaharika Sat, there can be Dvaita. But from a Paramarthika Sat, there is no Dvaita. And the Paramarthika Sat doesn't mean that you have to remove the Dvaita. This is the beauty of it. This is what we have to understand. It's not as though that the cessation of Dvaita has to take place before Advaita comes. No. It's just an understanding that the space is Advaita, but it can be taken as Advaita. So, Advaita is not opposed to Dvaita. Dvaita means duality, and Advaita means non-duality. So this is an important thing to see, that non-duality doesn't mean the absence of duality. It means the understanding of duality. That at a certain point duality is appropriate, but really speaking, when I understand that I am not limited, amatraha anantamatrascha dvaitasya upashamaha, and this is Shivaha. This is the definition of Shivaha. Then Omkaro vidito yena, the one who understands this view of Omkara, Sahamuni. Sahamuni means that only a Muni can understand. This is what is the definition of a Munihi. Munihi means Mananashila. Mananashila means one who has gone through this in a very structured, orderly way of understanding. Na itarojana. He says, not people who simply say things, don't understand it, and so on. So this is the end of the Agama Prakarnam. So with that, we finish this. So here, one last thing to reiterate is that Omkaraho vidito yena, that Omkara is who's seen, this is what is called Sakshat Karanam. Sakshat Karanam means that it is not something that you think about, you will see this very clearly, directly. This is what is called Akhanda Akara Vritti. We will go over that some other time. But that Vritti says, oh my God, this is who I am. So this is called Sakshat Karanam. It's no longer you are following something and you are trying to see something. No. All of that resolves in a very direct view of who you are. Then you are capable of being called a Muni or a Rishi, one who knows, one who has come to a conclusion after examining the facts. It's called Muni, Mananashila. And so with that, the Agama Prakarana is now over. And so, as we said earlier, that the Agama Prakarana is simply the view of the Shastra that I should look into. But at this point, I'm still kind of like sitting there. Okay, that sounds good, but right now my view is I'm still very limited. That's correct. You should have that. Don't. This is where the acharyas also say that you should not believe. You should see for yourself. And so that examination will continue in the next prakarana, which is called the Vaithatya Prakaranam. And so the Vaithatya Prakaranam will be basically to look at the view of the Shastra from a logical standpoint. So that we will do next time. So without this is a kind of like a major completion where we have done the Mandukya, and perhaps we will in the next class just recite the entire Mandukya as a saying, kind of like a goodbye to it. And then we will now, in the rest of it is just Karika. Just Karika. There will be references made to the Agama, but really speaking, in that sense, I mean, if you want, you can now leave. Your class is over. Mandukya is over. And now the examination through Karika begins, which will take quite a long time. So we'll see about that. Om Swasti Prajabhyah Paripalayantam Nyayena Margena Mahim Mahisha Go Brahmanebhyah Shubhamastu Nityam Loka Samastha Sukhino Bhavantu Kale Varshatu Parjanyaha Prithvi Sasya Shalini Desho Yam Shobharahitaha Brahmana Santu Nirbhayaha Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. Yes, sir.
Dvaitasya
Dvaitasya upashamaha. Upashama means quietening down, or the it would mean cessation, but not a physical cessation. It means that thoughts that bother you in terms of it being Dvaita, they recede into the background in terms of being replaced by the fact that understanding is that only Advaita can be Dvaita. So,
I have a second follow-up
yeah.
question. In the seventh shloka of the Agama Prakarnam, one of the translations that I saw that never bothered me, this is the Gopinanda's book.
Okay.
And it follows, it literally is translating everything, and then it says that whose valid proof consists in a single belief in the self. Is that how you...
So I'm sorry, number 7 is Vibhutim Prasavam Tu Anye. Is that the one?
No, Antam Pragram Navajitra.
Oh, the main Mandukya itself. So what about it? Sorry?
It is Ekam Atma Pratyaya Saram. Literal translation is a belief in the self?
No, there's no belief.
But this is how, unfortunately, one of this book has translated. It's saying that whose valid proof consists in the single belief in the self. I should change that to...
No, belief, the word belief doesn't really... First of all, it's an English word. And so I don't know what people... It's not the understanding, really. Understanding, yeah. You can say that one translation of... so Shraddha, there's a difference between Shraddha and Jnanam. So Shraddha means a complete confidence that what I'm following will lead to Jnanam. It's called Shraddha. So we can, if somebody wants to, even that doesn't apply here. So Shraddha, I think a good example is that if you want to understand particle physics, but you don't understand it yet, that is, you keep on studying. This is called Shraddha. But even that doesn't apply here. Yes.
So this Eka Rupa Upasana is Matra, and Aneka Rupa Upasana, the Vishwa Rupa Upasana is a Matra, the expansion, limitless.
No, I don't think so. Eka Rupa means that, that also would be the consolidated view of Ishvara. See, that's one of the interesting things is that we studied that before, that there can be only one Chaitanya. There can be many manifestations of Chaitanya, but just like there's only, we did this, there's only one fire. All heat, you may have something that can reflect the fire, like a metal can become hot, but the real source is fire alone. So similarly, the only source of Chaitanya is Ishvara. And then I am a copy, I am kind of reflecting Ishvara. So Eka Rupa, I have to check exactly what the reference was.
Chapter 12.
Yes, I remember that. I don't exactly know. But no, Eka Rupa, just from memory and just from logic, would be mean that it is a single source of Chaitanya. And Ananta Rupa means that same, you can now worship it in many ways. You can worship it as a human being, as a devata, as a this, that, or the other. That is the Aneka Rupa. But Eka Rupa would means the single Ishvara, which is the source of all Chaitanya. That would be my... Mani?
So I have two questions. You said that we have two aspects of our lives, Bhava and Swarupa, right? and Swabhava is given to us. So it's Swabhava given to us based on our Raga, Dvesha,
Correct.
Karmas.
Or our previous karmas, yes, right.
My second question is related to Advaita and Advaita.
Mm-hmm.
So, generally what I am reading is that in Bhakti Yoga often there is Dvaitam because most worshippers separate themselves from the God and worship the God. But Jnana Rupa, or when you go into some of these other than that duality,
Yes.
then you study to
Yes.
wipe out that duality.
Yes.
Is it? Yeah.
So yeah, no, that's a good question. So the most superior bhakti is jnana. Jnanam is also bhakti, but the most superior. In fact, it's interesting that I'm going to cover that on Tuesday night. The Dakshinamurti Stotram. Stotra means a stuti. Stuti means a praise. So here, Adi Shankara people have really looked at it because in the discipline of our literature, you cannot write something until you justify why you are writing something. You cannot just say the same thing, that's all. If something has been done before, then it is not valid to do it again. You go to the original one. In Dakshinamurti Stotram, what was pointed out by Sureshwaracharya in his Manasa Ullasa, this is a very beautiful book which was needed. Why is it so? Because the stuti means a praise, combines both bhakti and jnanam. So, you can say a pure jnanam may not fructify because you have not developed a love for it. It looks like academic. It happens all the time that people will say, what are you following? I'm following Advaita Vedanta. Have you studied Ramanujan? No, I have not studied Vedanta. That means from his standpoint, you are incomplete. You've got to look at everything. But if you find something which explains everything, then the love for that really is total. So the bhakti and jnanam are really two wings of the same bird. Initially, bhakti can be that you look at it as Advaita. That's okay. No problems. No problems with that. But the ending of the bhakti is the final one, which is a bhakti based on jnanam, not based on ajnana. So yeah, something like that. But this is why the Dakshinamurti Stotram is, because you don't see Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, Tasmai Shri Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. So it's a bhakti, it's bowing down to it. But in the form of the very first one is the details about what the bhakti is. Yeah. As I've often mentioned, that if you were to introduce a famous scientist like, someone, then the best would be you understand what that person has done. Then you are awed by it. My God, what a physicist was. Otherwise you can just say, he got the following award and so on and so forth. You don't understand what the person has done. So the real bhakti is jnana purvaka bhakti. Yeah.
Brahmanishta.
Brahmanishta, yes. Brahmanishta can also be either just with Shraddha, that you may not know everything, but you are convinced that this is the right thing. Nothing else attracts you as much as this, but you don't know it very well yet. So that's Shraddha. Whereas if you are a Munihi, as we just saw, that means you yourself can explain. So there the Nishtha is natural. It is not something which is imposed on by your mind. You have knowledge of exactly what it is. Yeah, something like that. Anyway, since we have a couple of minutes, might as well finish. Sorry, did you have a question?
No, I just wanted to, one announcement that Swamiji did confirm.
Yeah, please.
So, April 15th,
Mhm.
he's going to do the evening class on Bhagavad Gita, and 16th morning to Friday, 19th,
Okay,
is morning and evening.
okay.
And then weekend we have retreat for 2 days.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Very good.
Will it be live by any chance?
No. Yeah. No, right? No.
That's what you told us last time.
Yeah.
You want people to come. You want people to come here. It will be recorded, but it will be presented later.
Okay.
That's one reason. Second reason is, broadcasting is...
Yeah. He wants like retreat and
Yeah,
particularly
I
morning
think
class.
so.
He wants
Yeah.
people space.
That makes sense.
So morning class is here, it's here?
Yes, everything. The venue is going to be 691
Yeah.
downstairs in the main hall.
And you will post the hours and all
Yeah. It's going to be announced by Live Impact
that?
in a few days, but he just
Yeah.
confirmed all the horses and everything is done. So
So the retreat is 19th to the 21st?
20th and 21st.
Where do we have to sign up
Yeah.
again for
Yes, and a retreat has to be signed up, please.
Details.
Make sure that you do sign up as soon as he sends the Live Impact.
how the classes in the morning classes?
We're gonna have, first day is going to be until 4 p.m.
What time will it start?
Huh?